Look at what is holding the structure you are inside right now. It doesn't matter what it is, a wall, a beam, a ceiling. Something is carrying the load. Something was placed there according to a plan that existed in someone's mind before the first element was positioned. Before the foundation was poured, before the first wall went up, someone held the completed form in their imagination and worked backward to the sequence of steps that would produce it. That capacity to hold a form that doesn't yet exist and then make it exist is one of the things that defines what human cognition became. 25,000 years ago, on a treeless plain in what is now Ukraine, a group of people did the same thing. The material they used was the bones of mammoths. Not because bones were convenient, not because they were the only option, because on a steppe where wood was scarce and winters dropped to temperatures that kill an unprotected body in hours, the largest concentration of load-bearing material available was the skeletal remains of the largest land animals in the world. Someone looked at a mammoth skull, a structure weighing over 100 kilograms, shaped by millions of years of evolutionary pressure into one of the most efficient natural load-bearing forms that exists, and saw a building material. And then they built. The question is not why they built with bone. The question is what the buildings tell us about the mind that conceived them. A mammoth skull weighs between 40 and 100 kilograms depending on the individual. A lower mandible weighs 10 kilograms or more. A full adult mammoth tusk can exceed 3 meters in length and weigh 60 kilograms. None of these were found where they were used. They were gathered from the surrounding landscape, sometimes from carcasses, sometimes from older bone accumulations, sometimes from distances of several kilometers, sorted by type and size, and transported to the construction site before any building began. This is not opportunistic use of available material. This is logistics. Before the first skull was placed, someone had to know how many they needed, how large the structure would be, which bones would form the base ring, which would stack to form the walls, which tusks would arch inward to support whatever covered the top. They had to coordinate other people because no individual could move this material alone, around a plan that existed only in someone's mind. Something had to hold that plan stable across the days or weeks the construction would have required. The primary archaeological record of these structures comes from the work of Ivan Pytopliko, a Soviet archaeologist who excavated a series of sites in Ukraine beginning in the 1950s, most extensively at a site called Mazyrik, near the city of Kaniv. Pytopliko's work, published in English by British Archaeological Reports in 1998, translated and edited by Philip Allsworth-Jones, documented 5 sites in modern Ukraine: Kiev-Kirillovsky, Gansy, Dobranichevka, Mezin, and Mazyrik. What Pytopliko found at Mazyrik was not a single structure. It was 4 separate circular buildings, each several meters in diameter, dating to approximately 15,000 years before the present. Between the 4 structures at Mazyrik, the excavation recovered 149 mammoth skulls, 74 lower jawbones, 35 tusks, dozens of long bones and scapulae, all of it brought to the site, all of it placed deliberately. The skulls formed the base ring of each structure, arranged in a circle with their frontal bones facing outward. The mandibles were stacked in a herringbone pattern to form the walls, a pattern that distributes load efficiently, that any structural engineer would recognize. The tusks were positioned to arch inward and support a roof frame. The construction follows a logic that was worked out before the first piece was placed. These are not shelters of opportunity. They are designed objects, built by people who knew what they were building before they started building it. The functional explanation, shelter in a treeless, frozen landscape, accounts for why someone would build with bone. It does not account for everything that was found at these sites. At Mezin, another Ukrainian site of the same period, Pytopliko and later researchers excavated mammoth bones that had been decorated. Not accidentally marked by use, deliberately decorated, with geometric patterns engraved into the bone surface. Chevrons, meander patterns, parallel rows of marks that do not represent anything in the external world. Abstract visual notation, applied to structural material before or after it was used. Ludmila Iakovleva's 2009 analysis in L'Anthropologie, L'Art Mazinian en Europe Orientale dans son contexte chronologique, cultural et spirituel, placed these engravings in full context. The Meson culture was not using mammoth bone as available material and decorating it incidentally. The geometric vocabulary on the bones is consistent across objects and across individuals. The same patterns appear on bones from different structures, suggesting a shared visual language. A convention, something agreed upon. You cannot engrave a mammoth bone with a shared geometric vocabulary unless there is already agreement about what the marks mean. Agreement requires communication about something that exists only as an abstraction, a form that has no referent in the physical world except the marks themselves. But here's where it gets stranger. The same sites that produced decorated mammoth bones also produced ivory figurines, perforated animal teeth used as pendants, and musical instruments made from bone. The mammoth bone house was not a purely functional object surrounded by purely functional objects. It was embedded in a material culture that was producing form for reasons that went beyond survival. Someone was making decisions about what things should look like, not just what they should do. The cognition required to build a mammoth bone house is not the same as the cognition required to knap a flint tool. Toolmaking, even sophisticated toolmaking, operates in a present-tense relationship with material. Hand, stone, action, result. The sequence can be learned by observation and practiced into automatic execution. The feedback is immediate. Each strike either works or it doesn't, and the next strike adjusts. Building a structure is a different cognitive operation. You have to hold the completed form in mind before any of it exists. You have to maintain that representation across hours, days, possibly weeks, while materials are gathered, sorted by size and type, transported to site, and placed in a specific sequence. The steps only make sense in relation to an endpoint that is not yet present in the world. The person placing the first skull in the base ring of a Mizirek house was not responding to the skull in front of them. They were acting in relation to a mental model of a structure that didn't exist yet. Every placement was an act of reference to that model. This is what the science of cognition calls extended working memory, not just holding the next step in mind, but maintaining the whole goal structure while executing the parts. The ability to inhabit a future that hasn't happened yet and work backward from it into the present. That capacity is in you right now. Every project that unfolds across time toward an outcome you hold in your mind, every plan that requires sequencing steps whose meaning is only visible from the endpoint, is running on the same architecture. The 25,000 years between you and the builders of Mizirek have not changed it. In 2005, cognitive archaeologists Frederick Coolidge and Thomas Wynne at the University of Colorado published a paper in the Cambridge Archaeological Journal. Working memory, its executive functions, and the emergence of modern thinking. Their framework applied the neuroscience and cognitive psychology of working memory to the archaeological record of the Upper Paleolithic. The question they were asking is one that the bones make unavoidable. What does an artifact or a structure tell us about the cognitive capacities of the mind that produced it? Their answer, the mammoth bone houses require, as a precondition for their existence, a working memory system with robust executive control. Not just the capacity to plan one step ahead, the capacity to hold a hierarchical goal structure, a plan with nested subplans, each dependent on the others, stable across extended time, while managing the physical and social coordination of multiple individuals around a shared endpoint. Coolidge and Wynne argued that this enhanced working memory capacity, which they placed at the foundation of what distinguishes modern human cognition from earlier hominin cognition, is directly readable in structures like Mizirek. You cannot produce a designed object of this complexity without it. And once you have it, you use it for everything. Not only building, but language at full syntactic complexity, planning across seasons, the kind of symbolic system that produces shared geometric notation on structural bone. The bone is different. The problem is always the same. Every designed object, from the mammoth skull base ring at Mizirek to the structure holding your ceiling up right now, is a record of the same cognitive operation. A mind that held a form in the future and then moved toward it. The structures at Mizirek have been in the ground for approximately 15,000 years. The bones are still in the positions in which they were placed. They have outlasted everything that was built with them, everything that used them, everything that lived in proximity to them. What they record is not a building technique. They record a cognitive event. The first time in the archaeological record, That we can see this clearly, that a mind held a complex, multi-part form in its imagination and executed it at scale across time in coordination with others. The question the structures open is not whether that capacity was present. Clearly was. The question is where it came from, what changed in the architecture of the human brain to make this kind of extended, hierarchical planning possible when it wasn't before. The fossil record of human anatomy doesn't help much here. The brain of a person at Mizirek 25,000 years ago was anatomically identical to yours. Whatever changed to make this cognition possible had already happened by then. It happened earlier in structures that left no buildings behind. Those structures are inside you. They are the part of the brain that evolved last, expanded most dramatically in the human lineage, and about which we understand the least. What changed there, what crossed a threshold to make mammoth bone houses, engraved geometric notation, and shared symbolic systems possible, is the question this channel is moving toward. The bones are still there. The builder's mind is still running.